incredible panel of the finest designers in New York City. Hello. Come on in, sit down, grab a seat. Have a seat. Grab your bottle of wine, your bottle of champagne.
The whole bottle.
The whole case if you want it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Oh my God, how great this is.
We have seats.
Grab a seat. We have a few seats. I know we're the very last at the end of the day. I really appreciate you guys being here. Grab a seat. This is our Plexi-Craft showroom. We haven't had a showroom in New York City for probably 15 years. We've been here for over 50 years. A year and a half ago, we established this showroom in the New York Design Center. We're excited to be here. So, welcome. We have an incredible night, 8 o'clock, which is now. And I just want you guys to know that we're on Instagram. We have a live video. My son, Christopher, is going to actually... I hope you're okay with that. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but it's a live video, so if you don't want to be on a live video, maybe I got to say that. So we're on a live video. So Christopher's going to take this. It's hopefully, say hi to the world. Hi to the world.
Hold on, Christopher.
Come on, get a little closer. We have a reserved seat here, which is no longer reserved, except for this blue umbrella. Come on, and please sit down. Please sit down. Come on over. Come on, grab your bottle, your case, whatever it is.
If you want to.
This is going to be spectacular. We're going to talk about acrylic. We're going to talk about acrylic, lucite,
Come on in and
Presta.
make yourself comfortable.
We're going to talk about the things that you can do with acrylic that you can't even imagine. After 50 years, acrylic is something totally new. It's the modern acrylic, things that you can't even imagine we can do. Okay, so I would like to introduce Patrick Hamilton. So my name is Hans Kretschmann, but you don't know me at all, because I just bought the company a year ago, so that doesn't even matter. So Patrick Hamilton, pretty much everybody in the room knows, and that does matter. And
Patrick! He's
an interior designer, a writer, a blogger, an activist. He's the winner of Apartment Therapy's first ever small, cool apartment contest. Patrick's work has been featured in HGTV, HGTV.com, The Kitchen Blog, and several print titles, which we won't mention since we're here today to celebrate Aspire. Aspire Magazine, thank you so much for making this work and putting the panel together. We really appreciate your efforts. If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be here tonight. Patrick has appeared in and hosted videos in Editor-at-Large and twice participated in Manhattan's prestigious Holiday House. And this fall, his rooms will appear in, and his name will appear on Holiday House 10 Years of Designing for a Cure, published by Pointed Leaf Press. He was featured in a 2-page spread in West 42nd Street magazine, and Patrick is also, and this is a scoop to you guys out there, first ever, participated in November's Southern Style Now Show House in Savannah, Georgia. In conjunction, if Savannah, Georgia is still there, yeah, it's still there. In conjunction with Stroheim and the Savannah College of Art and Design. Thank you so much for being here, and I would like to give it to Patrick to take it away from here. Thank you so much.
Savannah is still there, so we're happy about that. So I'm going to jump right in and introduce the panel, and I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out. We're going to start with Robin Barron. Robin Barron is an interior designer to the stars, captains of industry, and lucky regular people. She's a lifestyle expert and luxury home furnishings designer, and if you know her, you already know she's a force of nature. Not unlike Irma, but more constructive, destructive. Robin has brought her passion to licensed products, custom designs, and her own appearances on television. She's also a visible and active member of the design community, whether leading professional organizations or contributing to major charity events, like 7 years of vignettes for Housing Works Design at a Dime, among others. Robin gives us all lifestyle and design tips through her award-winning blog. Her motto, hashtag, and rallying cry of simplifying fabulous, we need t-shirts, extends across her robust and enviable multi-platform social media presence. She recently broke 25,000 followers on Instagram. And she's going to cough up the secret to that later. Immediately to my left, your right, is Drew McGukin. Drew tackles the art and craft of interior design with a unique level of energy, dashing style, and great integrity. His projects always showcase a touch of the unexpected, which is great because we're talking about unexpected tonight, so that will come in handy. And he's never shied away from bold pattern or great textures. His work, whether Brooklyn brownstone, showhouse room, custom furniture piece, or New York pied-à-terre, is vibrant, warm, handsome, tailored, and livable. He's a graduate of the New York School of Interior Design, has been active with ASID, and is a founding member of the New York Design Center, yay to them for today, to their Access to Design program. The IFTA wisely named Drew a Rising Star of Design in 2012, and he was a participating designer in the 2013-2014 Ronald McDonald House of Long Island renovation.
Nice.
So we have, that's that integrity part we were talking about before. And I think Drew can be summed up by a quote on his website. Style is subjective, manners are everything. Comfort is given, and the extra mile is always worth it. Let's give it up for Drew. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Stephen Favreau. He is an innovative interior designer, and he's bi-coastal. You heard it here first. And to clarify, he maintains offices in Boston and San Francisco. His work, both residential and commercial, spans the United States and Europe. He was a two-time semifinalist for HGTV's Design Star, and you may have seen him on HGTV's The White Room Challenge, or during his cross-country tour for Robert Allen Fabrics as their brand ambassador. His soon-to-open Favrolus? I practiced that all afternoon. Favreau's factory in Boston Design's District will be an 11,000 square foot think tank created to take interior design to its edge and beyond. That sounds like a Lady Gaga song, and we're going to come back to that later. Stephen was also voted top 40 to watch by the Business Journal, and he's currently in development for a lifestyle television show, working title The Monk and the Showman. I'm guessing you're the monk. Stephen is also a cruise director, a dancer on Dutch television, and a roller skating waiter in New York City.
Of course.
And if you haven't already guessed, and I can vouch for this personally, Stephen is a total hoot and holler, so we're in for some energy. Speaking of energy, thank you for coming to the night shift of What's New, What's Next. Breakfast will be served after this. Who's been in the building since 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a long time.
Stephen's also in this issue of Aspire.
Oh, nice, shameless plug.
Everybody, open up the magazine on your chair.
What page? What page?
Shameless, isn't he?
So we're gonna start by taking a very in-depth scientific look at the mechanics of making plexiglass. We're actually not going to do that. We wouldn't do that to you at 8 o'clock at night. Everyone got very pale.
Even I got bored.
I got bored just introducing them. So we may not understand the mechanics of it, but we certainly can appreciate the beauty of it. So thank you for Plexi-Craft for showcasing us today and having us into your dazzling, shiny, and twinkling showroom. So let's, since we're talking about Plexi, let's talk about Plexi. In no particular order, what's your favorite thing about Plexi? I know, Robin, you've used pieces, you've created, crafted custom pieces. Why do you keep coming back to it?
Well, there's nothing that adds a little bit of glam like a little bit of Plexi. So I love Plexi. It's one of my most favorite materials to work with. And I do like that little bit of glam.
Since Robin stole what I was going to say, I will also say that the thing about Plexi is it's also stronger than glass, and it's, what was the other thing? What was it? No, it's stronger than glass, and it's lighter than glass. That was the other thing. So I think beyond the fact that it's beautiful and that it has, there's a certain, I'm looking around sort of at these paintings, and they may not be covered in Plexi, but there's a certain sort of difference between glass and Plexi that I think we're all sort of drawn to. And besides the fact that functionally it's lighter and it's stronger.
I think Plexi, well, if we go back to my integrity, I'm all about design principles and coming up with sort of a principled point of view about things, and I think Plexi really addresses shape, which, you know, you strip away all the color and the pattern, and it's really just about shape, and I think that's what's really interesting. It creates sculpture in a space, which is lovely.
So I think that there's a little bit of a misconception that Plexi, lucite, because it's clear, you can put it anywhere with anything just because it's clear. But as you said, it is sculptural, and it does have a look, and it does have certain qualities that add to a room. And I think that's really important to take into consideration when you're using it. It's not just that it's clear, it's lighter, it's clear, it doesn't visually take up a lot of space, but it really can add a sculptural quality that's unexpected.
And a sense of visual texture, really. I guess it adds to that. It's, you know, it's creating a visual texture without actual texture pattern.
To me, it's sort of the ultimate neutral. So when you're working with it, how do you work it in? When do you decide that it's right?
It is a neutral, and the thing that I love about Plexi is that as we're all trying to create a balance in a room, we are looking for texture, we're looking for different kinds of surfaces. So if a room starts to feel, even in the process where we're pulling it together before we show it to the client, if it's starting to feel heavy, what I love about Plexi, for instance a desk or even side tables, is that we can lighten up the space quickly by just adding a little bit of Plexi to it.
But you know, I also feel about neutrals, you know, there really is no neutral in that things work in a room and add to it or can distract from it. And I think that I don't personally look at Plexi as neutral. I look at it as a very conscious design decision. And I think that's really what makes my using Plexi successful, because it is very intentional where I use it.
And sort of speaking of neutral, I think this panel is not shy when it comes to color, generally. But you know, don't be fooled by the garb.
I know, we don't wear it, but we work with it.
So, but obviously clients will come to even you three and say, I want neutral. This room has to be. How do you keep beige from being boring?
I add color. So I love actually working with a neutral palette. And again, what's neutral in one space may not be neutral in another. It depends on what the overriding and overarching color scheme is. But I love working with neutral tones and then popping it with color, whether it's taking, you know, pale taupes and dark taupes and working with tones and shades of a color, and then popping, whether it's an orange, a fuchsia, a blue, but really taking a chance with a very saturated, bold color makes a room, to me, exciting because it helps your eye move through the room. You know, as designers, our goal is to engage our minds our eyes and engages our minds to be able to move through a room in a way that isn't busy, but it's engaging and exciting.
Yeah, well, I tell clients when the first 2 weeks working with a client is sort of the most, well, it is to me the most important. It's also a really exciting time. I call it discovery. So when I'm talking to a potential client and I'm laying out to them, this is how our process is going to go, I talk about the first 2 weeks of discovery, and that our jobs is to show them things that they never would have dreamt, right? To push them out of their comfort zone, always with respect, hopefully, and to kind of know when to pull back and when to push, and to give them the home of their dreams as filtered through our talents, but always exactly what they're looking for. To me, that's what a good designer does. And so things like Plexi aren't necessarily on everyone's radar, and meaning the client, not all of us, because I assume you all love Plexi as much as I do. So I think it's a tool to show them this sort of a neutral that isn't beige, or to add in texture and shimmer and gleam and reflective surface that elevates the quote-unquote beige room.
I mean, I think that the word I was going to use was also tool. I think even this table in front of us is a great, you look at this and say, okay, this is beige and neutral, but it becomes so much more when you really treat it like, Plexi adds a dynamic to it. And I think when you're dealing with, a neutral room, and there is a misconception that neutral is only beige. I mean, I think purple is a neutral in a way. Like it really,
It's neutral in that.
yeah, I mean, so you can neutralize a space by just doing layers of tonal values, whatever the color is. But I think that change in dynamic, that change in texture, the ability to see through one portion of it, and the other portion to be upholstered in some way. I think those are such unique ways to create a sense of balance and dimension, really, in a neutral space.
And Plexi is also sort of, to me, is a very modern material. It feels like a modern thing, even though it's been around for a while. But is there room for a modern thing in a not-so-modern room? I know you guys are all about the mix and sort of lean more in the contemporary vein, but when you have those clients who are traditional, or the space calls for something like that, is there room for these kinds of pieces in a traditional space?
100%. I did a home a couple of years ago. The clients were very traditional, and I pushed them beyond the envelope to get them into a more contemporary, out the window, really, for a more contemporary look. But the home still has, a transitional feel, but a traditional bend to it. And I did put Plexi in there. I used a new Plexi small table in their master bedroom between two chairs in the sitting area. And I used a massive vintage Plexi coffee table, massive, in the living room that really was the center point. And even though there were transitional and some traditional and some modern pieces around, it truly just made the whole room come alive. It's definitely clear, and it's definitely reflective, and the combination just elevated the entire space.
And I think too, in a traditional space, it's so, lucite Plexi is such you can carve nearly anything out of this stuff. So to take a really traditional shape, which you'll see tables or columns or pedestals, and then create that out of Plexi is so interesting in a very traditional space. And I think sometimes even a super traditional antique bust of some kind or a really traditionally carved lucite column is fantastic. It can be really interesting.
Buddha head, I love that.
Buddha head. I have a theory that an antique piece or a vintage piece elevates a contemporary piece. So most of my work will have sort of a very contemporary room perhaps, but with a gorgeous 1700s grandfather clock in it. In fact, if you look in Aspire, this is a shameless plug, project
number two, if you keep
There he is.
if you look, there's a living room. This is a house in Vermont, 1832. And what I did is I nodded to the old-time traditional feel by bringing it up to a very contemporary vocabulary with color and size and scale. But particularly, if you look in the living room, there are two lucite tables under each of the two windows. And what I love about that is exactly what I'm talking about. Because the Lucite is so contemporary and sleek, it elevates this antique house. And I love that sort of dialogue, the juxtaposition, yes.
And those are not the connections that people would normally make. Those are why you hire a designer, to make those connections that seem like they might not work, but you guys know is going to work. So.
I think you can also, many times I've created just simple waterfalls over interesting pieces. So you take sort of a little antique chest of some kind of waterfall over it to create a lift of some kind. Just a million uses, but I think of Plexi a lot of times as an amplifier. So it's really, again, going back to being a tool. It really enhances whatever it is that you're creating. So are you lifting something up? Are you pushing something back? Are you seeing through something? But just really thinking about this tool as an amplifier.
So this whole panel, if you haven't noticed, they speak in tweets. So everything is hashtagable and memorable and worth tweeting out really quickly. So that's why they're here. Jewelry has also been a place where Plexi has had a presence. So, and there's so much inspiration that can come from jewelry. I know the collections at the Mass Museum are amazing, and Calder and Tiffany and a lot of architects and artists have worked in jewelry. Where are you guys getting your unexpected inspiration from? And how do clients inspire you?
Well, I have a very recent, I finished an installation for a client last night. And it was really the epitome of the client realizing that they are really the raison d'etre, the entire inspiration for the whole job. We always say we're inspired by the client, but if we really do the discovery and we really listen to them, it becomes so integrated into certainly how I think when I'm designing and feeling how I'm designing the space. And last night, after 3 years on a project, we installed everything, and they had seen almost nothing really before. And they walked in, and all they kept saying is, "It's my dream home. This is what I've always wanted." And I looked at them and I said, "I know you didn't really understand how much I listened and heard you and how much you inspired me, but now you see it." I think that all of us, all good designers, are really inspired on very subtle as well as not so subtle levels with the client, so that every choice we make, we're seeing it through their eyes.
That's a good point. When I'm feeling particularly snarky, which actually, if you know me well, is not very often, Michael. And I when I'm feeling particularly snarky, or maybe it's a Friday or something, I'll say, interior design would be so great if there were no clients. Wow, right? Yeah. But I don't.
The show houses.
Right. And I say,
you're all thinking it.
You're all right. They are. I know they are. And I always say my favorite client is me. But the point is, it is really true that we are inspired by our clients. I mean, we have to be, because we're in a service business at the end of the day. And so I can't think of a single project, except for, like I said, maybe my own house, that wasn't inspired by the client. Because, again, during that discovery period, we are downloading exactly who they are, but we're showing them what they never could have imagined. But it's still informed by them.
It's our job to give them what they don't know they want.
Exactly. That's it.
That's the hashtag.
And just along those same lines, for me in my work, I'm always looking to infuse a sense of soul. And in that respect, it's just, I say this to almost every client, I'll give you my time, my energy, my expertise, my effort, my opinion, but you cannot have my soul. So it's, I will create a palette, but you've got to bring yourself into it in some way. You've got to bring art to the table. You've got to bring point of view to the table. You've got to bring a sense of functionality to the table. And that really is where a lot of my inspiration comes out. When you start picking apart all those little pieces into the small listening, into the quiet listening, into the listening to actions, and understanding how a person really facilitates life in a space, it does become very inspiring, and it becomes very inspiring to see yourself affect change for those people, and to really bring them forward into something fresher and newer and more interesting, or just to fix problems. Like, solutions are so inspiring to me. Like, I really am just always knocked out of the park to myself when we solve someone's problem.
And what you said was so important, because it's not just what people say, what a client says to you. It's really about observing them and really understanding how they function, because that's really the key to knowing what they want and how they want to live.
Right, and to piggyback on what Drew said a minute ago, I always tell my staff, don't ever source something they don't love. So in other words, maybe we don't particularly love the client's taste 100%, but we can certainly find something within all of this beautiful available merchandise that we can fall in love with and be proud of and that the client will like. And I love what Drew said earlier about what if you had sort of an old trunk or something, and maybe it's a family heirloom, and maybe it's not even particularly valuable or that attractive to look at, but imagine putting sort of a simple plexi table over the top of it. I think it's such a good solution, and that's what designers have to be, are problem solvers or solution makers.
And the other thing about Plexi that I really think is important, I mean, it's right in front of us, the mixed use of materials. You've got a wood top and you have the Plexi legs. I really think that is a very forward-thinking way to use Plexi. You don't have to think of it as just Plexi in a space. It's the combination of materials that really can make something very distinctive, and I love that. That inspires me.
So I think also, people hire designers because they want to go a little further than I think they even realize they want to go. So how do you, and you guys are all great at bringing something unexpected to the table, but how do you make sure that every project you work on has something unexpected into it? And maybe we go back to Robin saying, like, this process has been 3 years and they haven't really seen anything until the installation date. We'll get back to that in a second, because that is like secret magic, voodoo, something happening there. But how do you make sure that there's always something a little unexpected, even if it's coming from them?
Right.
Like how do you build that in?
One of the things I love about these panels, and that I'm so frustrated about these panels, is that we go off, we have like 5 other topics that we're just dying to talk about, and that's a really good one that you brought up. I think that it goes back to that client, filtering through what they love, and then we're inspired by the space. And then we go out into the world, we come to the design center, and because of who we are as designers, we are hopefully pushing ourselves every time. So a friend once asked me what's the difference between a decorator and a designer, and I think we all have a different opinion on that. But if a decorator is someone who sort of replicates what's already been done, or I don't know, I don't even know what my definition is. A designer is someone who sees things completely in a new way and is always rediscovering what it is to create an amazing home, both functionally and from an aesthetic standpoint.
I'm gonna go the other side of it. I'm all about assigning personal responsibility. So some of this unexpectedness actually is a responsibility of the client. So not every project wins in that department. There are some people who just will not let the cat out of the bag, and so that's really where when I'm banging my head against the wall because somebody's like wants another shade of gray, even though they hired because they love all the color on my website. You really do assign personal responsibility to people, and you just plain say, listen, we've stripped this thing down to 2 shades of gray and a dash of white. I mean, there's nothing that's going to be exciting about this. Remember when you brought the images to my office and you had the picture of the wood grain that we painted metallic gold into, and it was turquoise, by the way, and you bring these things back to people, or you say, if I'm not mistaken, the first image you gave me was wallpaper on a ceiling, and that's really where I think you make sure you get those points, is always going back to what I call the mission statement. Getting that unexpected point of view is reminding those people that they've brought you those images that inspired them, and their project looks nothing like that today. So how do we get back there? So for us, on my team, we're always going back to what we call the mission statement, which is usually has something to do with being different or cool or unexpected or colorful or vivacious, and people forget that when they hired you, they brought you a fuchsia sofa and wallpaper on the ceiling, and you're busy in like 14 shades of gray. And so, it's personal responsibility. The client has it too.
And can you get back there with them? How often do you have that moment of truth and you get back to where they originally came to you with?
Who likes to be told that they're boring? I mean, do you? I mean, as soon as you get told you're boring, you order 3 more shots and keep going. You're like, I think I'll be staying up late tonight.
I'm hanging with Drew after this event.
All you have to do is let them know they're boring.
Shaming is the way you say it.
So I feel a little bit differently in that I feel the responsibility is on me to make sure that I infuse the unexpected. And it's not a conscious thing where I'm saying, I've got to do that. It's really about, I do think out of the box. I don't see things the way, like, I'll look at that mirror and I don't see that mirror, I see what I can do with that mirror, which gets me in trouble all the time because I custom everything. But I really feel that it's my job to speak to the client, to meet them wherever I have to meet them, to be able to take them where I want to take them. And sometimes it doesn't happen 1, 2, 3. It's several meetings, or it's over the course of months. But it could be months, it could be 3 years. But it definitely is my responsibility to push their envelope as far as I can to give them, as I said, what they don't know they want. I mean, I'm still addressing everything they've told me and everything that they've, have in their heads, but they don't know what I know, and they can't think out of the box the way that I can think out of it. So it's my job to get them there, and how I do it is, God only knows, but it's different with every client, because it's almost like, you have to get into their head and speak their language and meet them someplace that they are open to hear you.
Shameless plug number 3. No, this is a plug for you too.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
You're all right with that. Again, going back to we'll pull you into it. We'll give you a shameless plug.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm sort of in the same camp with Robin on that one, and this is a really tough thing as designers that we do, because sometimes we take a job because we have to pay a bill, because we have a staff member we're trying to keep on, and we take this job and we put them to work, and that's a tough balance. I totally understand that. Robin and I are speaking in high point on your brand as a designer, finding your authentic voice of who you are. So to Drew's point is, you don't hire this boy if you want beige, beige, and beige, right? So it's really important that we sort of live our brand, and not necessarily in the same way I live my brand, but that we all find a way to live our brand so that hopefully we are able to lead the client down a road that they never come to us with 18 shades of gray, right, and get us all frustrated. Of course it happens, but...
Or they do, they have 18 shades of gray and we make it rock, in unexpected ways. Well, yeah, I just did a fuchsia sofa, it's sectional in this.
So since color keeps coming up, and there's this whole new wave to the color of the year, and every company's sort of doing it now. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is there such a thing as the right color at the right moment? Like, talk color trend and how you feel about the idea of color trend.
Time of can of worms.
without naming anything.
None of us are afraid of color, that's for sure. And I think color in itself is magical and timeless. So, even if you think about color in lucite, you can turn this stuff any color you want to and put that together. But, I think it just, to me, color is all about balance. And that's really, timelessness is about balance and something that has a longevity to it. And enough of a simplicity, yet enough of a boldness and a voice that you can hang on to for a long time. And that's really when I'm thinking about color, big picture, palette-wise, I'm always looking to, it really is balance. But I don't know if you guys feel that.
Absolutely. And in terms of color of the year and all that, it's great for marketing, and it's great to get color in people's consciousness. But does it affect the work that I do? No, I don't care what color of the year it is. I care about, the client and what respond to and what resonates with them and what's going to look great in that space. I can care less what the color of the year is. But the color of the year becomes important because it opens a communication with people about color. And that is why it's important to me.
Right, riffing on what Robin said, as a designer for me, I always get scared when they announce the color of the year because I feel like I don't want to use that color because in 3 years it's going to be out or overused, right? So, for instance, when the Sputnik chandelier came out, it's gorgeous, so we all gravitate towards it. And I literally have to pull myself back and not use it because I know that we're going to see it everywhere. So that's a tough challenge.
A couple times each of you have talked about tonight, or I know for a fact that you often, if not always, custom pieces. What's the process in customizing or sort of creating a Plexi piece from scratch? Is the process...
Ms. Barron, did you currently launch a line of furnishings?
Okay, so first of all, I do custom so much of what I do. And I have a client on the Upper East Side in a beautiful apartment, and I wanted something special as a coffee table. So where did I go but to Hans? And I made a very large Plexi coffee table, and I combined it with a gold, metallic gold, beautiful leather. And if you go on my Instagram, _Robin Barron, I posted it today, a photo of this, a really spectacular coffee table that Hans and his whole entire crew really did a beautiful job. I mean, it is gorgeous. And so I think that it's exciting to me to be able to work with Plexi and custom design it because I love Plexi so much. What I will say, because I've been working on and off for a little while with the team here to come out with my own capsule collection, what I did not know, and I have a whole new respect for each of you here in the firm because Plexi is damn tough to work with. You can't combine certain, sides of a piece and certain shapes. You see the glue, there's so much to take into account which you do not have to take into account when you're working in woods or metals or any other material. So I have a very high level of respect for everyone here at Plexi-Craft because it ain't easy.
And I think that Plexi certainly, but anything you're doing from a customization point of view, part of what will make you successful is the people that you're choosing to work with. And really going to those experts in that part of the craft. If it's wood, if it's Plexi, if it's fabric, if it's, metals, whatever it is, you'll learn so much. But I think as a designer, really what we do is say, here's what we want it to look like. And then we go to these vendors who we just respect, who ultimately are the expert in that part of the field, and they'll say, here are the challenges with your design. And that's really the beautiful part, the collaboration that says, all right, how do I get what I want? How does Hans get what he needs so that we don't see the glue and the edges all line up? And to me, it's almost always a more spectacular result because of that collaboration between the experts.
Absolutely true.
So what would you like to design in Plexi that you haven't designed yet?
So when you're speaking on a panel about unexpected ways to use Plexi, you spend an awful lot of time thinking about unexpected ways to use Plexi. And one of the things that I remember, I was with my sister and she was sort of going on about her kitchen cabinets and she couldn't replace them and she didn't know what to do. So we came up with an idea to do colored Plexi panels over the fronts of the cabinets, and they were drilled, and we put decorative screws, and we could choose all different kinds of colors. We could get excited about it. And so as I'm opening the Favreau factory in Boston, and we think about this enormous loft space and how to divide it, the thing that I started thinking about was room dividers, different ways to use Plexi to create space that you can still see through and do things that define that space.
Well, for me, what is very, very exciting, everyone that knows me knows I love jewelry, and I came out with my own collection of hardware, because that is like jewelry to me. And so what I'm designing now is Plexi and metal combination hardware for cabinets that is really quite fabulous, and that's exciting to me. It's the mix of textures, mix of materials that really excites me. And I just want to say that when Stephen was in Brimfield, last week. He found these amazing, not statues, what are these? Sculptures that are 8 feet high. And I'm sorry to take that away from you if you're going to mention it, but I want to do those in Plexi.
Oh.
Boom, shakalaka.
Take that.
Colored Plexi. Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm kind of a little bit of a nutcase when it comes to, I love things folded, and I'm like, you know, I like a perfect fold and a stack of graded t-shirts and I think if I were gonna make anything today, I'd do like a really chic, big, beautiful armoire that you just saw all the shells of all your stacks of jeans and t-shirts and great hardware and just you know, good molding details.
Turn your jeans into an installation.
Yeah, basically. That's off the top of the head right there.
That's good.
That's fantastic.
So some of the shapes, you know, the waterfall, like you talked about, that's a beautiful one behind you, and I love that idea of sort of having that be over something else. I love that idea. I'm borrowing that idea. I'm inspired by you, I have to say. I see a lot of Art Deco shapes. That's, to me, is sort of one of that, and I'm seeing Art Deco sort of coming back into play. There's also sort of the mod version of Plexi, that era. What eras find their way into your work, if they do, or regions of the globe? Where are you getting your influences from? Well, you talked about Brimfield, so I think the idea of looking back is always...
Yeah, looking back, I think even with Plexi, God, there's so much Plexi in mid-century design. There's great, there's notes there. I think that's awesome. That's a bit tribal inspiration. I really love that pattern. It really comes out of a lot of tribal inspirations for me. I think that, you know, expanding that or making that feel more modern or fresh in a lot of ways is, you know, something organic. I like sort of organic and substantial with a sort of clean freshness to it.
And I do too, and I also like the 60s, that whole mod period. I think that's cool, it's clean, it integrates really well with today's modern aesthetic.
For me, I just realized this recently, actually. In a previous career, I was a Broadway singer-dancer. La! And what I realized is that because, you know, when you're in the theater, you are surrounded by sort of the magic of lighting and jewel tones, and I was a dancer at the Moulin Rouge in Paris. And I remember, and again, I didn't realize this too recently, is the show progressed through Morocco and India in the different numbers that we did. And that's when I realized that all of these shows that I grew up, I started in the theater when I was maybe 12 years old. And so my life is informed by that. But I also think that because we're artists or creatives or designers, we're inspired by, I mean, we could be inspired by this bottle for whatever reason, right? Like the green label. I mean, so I think inspiration comes from everywhere.
That might have a Robinism. You never know where inspiration comes from, so always have an open eye and an open mind.
Yep.
I'm in a agree with I think it comes from everywhere, and a lot of times you don't realize, I mean, I don't realize where it comes from, it's just sort of happening around you, and I think that's the part of us that really is sort of the taste-making, trend-setting part of us. A lot of times, we're living it before we, you know, have put our finger on it's happening. Sometimes for me, it even takes someone else bringing it to my attention to think, oh God, I have been doing that, or I have been, you know, so it's interesting. I think it's just this innate sense of questioning and inquisitiveness about life and this willingness to always be foraging for something more, to be at Brimfield, to notice the bottle, or to say anything. It's these eyes that we have, and they're kind of wired that way, right? I think it's just a natural, we don't know what else to do but create.
But that's a technical term.
And I think what you said is really key. You know, we are visual people as designers, and so we have the eye to be able to see this bottle that's sitting there in front of everybody and nobody else is appreciating it. And that really is why we do what we do.
So to open a giant can of worms, like in our final seconds of this conversation, going back to the idea of unexpected, this panel, in case you haven't guessed, knows how to work social media. They know how to work a room, obviously, but they also know how to work social media. What are give me like one quick anecdote about how social media like surprised you, like an unexpected benefit of social media?
Clients.
Please,
I'm done.
please expand.
Mic drop.
But how is
So-
it, what's that route?
So the interesting thing is, somebody asked me somewhat recently, how do I get most of my clients? And of course, the answer has always been referrals. But when I took a look at my new clients over the last couple of years, it really is through social media. Where they found me because they saw me on TV, or they Googled, or they found me on Instagram, but it's all related to the digital world that we live in and my presence there. And I've gotten serious clients that way. And so that to me is mind-boggling, because I am in business for much longer than I'm going to tell you. And that was never the case before.
For me, watching the progression of what happens on my social media outlets is actually, I've learned about my brand. In other words, as I see it unfold, I start to realize, oh, there's a brand happening here, and this is interesting. And then people started responding to my brand. My last name is Favreau, so I use Favreless, the Favreless Factory, my Favreless Life. The reason that started actually is because of somebody who coined it first, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I started, and now I'm riffing. I feel like I'm riding a wave now, and that's exciting.
You know, I think that probably overarching wise is how personal it really is. You know, to be so impersonal in a lot of ways, to be so far removed from so many, to realize how very personal what you're saying to other people far and wide is. And I think that's been the biggest thing to me, that I really have been in other countries and have people either recognize me or stop me, and it's just shocking to me that, like, little old me here, and, you know, talking about that sofa I made that day, and, you know, and then that assistant of mine did something stupid, you know, and on my story, you know, the couple of times that someone stops you in a completely different place and says, oh my God, I recognize you, you're the one that had that red sofa, and did you fire that girl?
And you're like, who are you and why are you in my apartment?
Wow, I mean, you know, it's this really personal thing that goes on across the stratospheres, and I think that has been the most shocking and surprising and wonderful part of it for me.
And if I may, I think that the most wonderful part of it is, as what you're saying, it's really building community. And I really credit social media for helping us build this fantastic community in the interior design world that we have today, where we support each other and we reach out to each other when you see somebody needs them, or just encouragement, or just to say, job well done. And when we go to places like What's New, What's Next, and we see people that we're connected to on social media, we really feel really connected to them, not just connected on social media. And I think that community, that sense of community, is the difference between me loving what I do and the old days of just doing what I do.
So somebody walked by with bottles of wine, so I've lost the ability to concentrate. So that might have a ripple effect on you. No offense, but especially because we're so late in the day, thank you so much for the energy that you brought. Plexi-Craft family, the actual family.
The actual.
And to our friends at Aspire Magazine. And you're getting like the hot off the press magazine, so like don't leave it here because I will take all of it.
Yes.
And thank you, Patrick.
And
Thank you, Patrick. Well done. Well done.
Okay, wine. There's wine back there.
This is for you, Dennis.
You have your phone, she comes. And Lori, you should be in the picture too.
You guys were great.
She's good. I know, we're just gonna wrap. Okay, over here. The paparazzi. Very nice, very nice. Wow, you guys are famous. Oh, my freaking me out. You're freaking me out. No, baby, I get what you're Wait, I'm photobombing. She's trying to be. I love y'all.